This video is an appreciation to the handplane, and I'm restoring it from this to this. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. I've just recently gotten into handplanes, and this one specifically is a Stanley Bailey No. 4 Type 20 handplane, and was produced between 1962 and 1967. Well, that is what I gathered from the internet. And as you can see, it has been through the rusty wringer. Quite aged, with lots of character. So I'm separating all the pieces so that it can soak in some rust remover. This plane isn't one of the oldest planes out there, but it always makes me wonder where it came from, who was the owner, or what has it built over the years. The Stanley Bailey handplane is renowned for its quality, and to this day is still a collector item and people use it on all sorts of projects. So I used some old rust remover that I had, but it looks like I probably should have replaced it. So I ended up scrubbing off what I can and then replaced the rust remover with some fresh stuff. What I love about handplanes is how simple yet complicated it is. Easy to assemble, but takes a little bit of time to dial it in. There are so many different tools out there, and new tools coming out each day. But I think there's something that we can all appreciate when using a handplane. Just a little bit more satisfaction, and appreciating the generations that only had these tools. Well, that's the way I use and appreciate these tools. With a fresh soak in new rust remover, I let it sit and soak for a couple of hours so that the rust remover can do its job. And in the meantime, I start the process of removing the paint on the knob and tote. I stumbled upon a video of Paul Sellers, shout out to Paul Sellers, who used the edge of a chisel to remove the finish off the tote and knob. And to my surprise, it worked out so good. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this wood species is a Brazilian rosewood, which was used in most Stanley Bailey handplanes. This chisel trick actually worked so great, kinda just feels like you're peeling an apple with a knife. I know there's so many different ways to finish these tote and knobs. I ended up using tried and true finish, added a coat and let it soak for at least an hour, and then I buffed it out. I like the feeling of the natural oil finish, which is why I settled with that product. You know your rust remover is working great when you see bubbles like that. So I ended up using water to neutralize the rust remover, and then just started sanding away as much as I could. I didn't have a wire brush or anything like that, so I just used some steel wool. And I was debating on redoing the paint on this handplane, but I decided against it because it gives the handplane character, and knowing that someone used this handplane and created those marks is actually kind of cool. I kind of think of it as when you buy a vintage Fender Stratocaster, you know that it's going to have so much character. So why buy it if you're going to update it so it's brand new? But that's the way I think of it, at least. Right now I'm sanding all the pieces down where metal touches metal to smooth it out and get a great connection. From what I read is you need a good flat surface connection. I stropped the brass so it has a nice finish. It really helped bring out that shine. I assembled all the pieces back together so that I could start sanding down the sole of the handplane. This part of the restoration project takes a lot of time. It's a pretty integral step to get nice clean cuts. And just cleaning it up a little bit, I end up using Sharpie marker so I can gauge how it's sanding down. I usually count to 30 strokes, and then I check to see how much closer I am to getting it where I want it. And I found that the sides of the sole were pretty pitted, so I ended up taking it to the disc sander to grind it a little bit smoother. Elitists may call me crazy for doing something like this, but I just couldn't stand that pitting on the sides. And since I got it closer, it's time to do even more sanding. I sanded down the sides and then I slowly bring it down to the sole. This helps create a rounder edge and prevents the edges from biting into your material. I do it to both sides of edges, and then I also do it to the front. And then off to the most integral part of your hand plane, it's your blade. You always want to make sure your blade is extremely sharp. I soaked up my water stones while I was establishing my plane blade angle. And with any type of sharpening, I go through the grits. My water stone is 3000 to 8000, so I start with 3000, and when I'm happy, I go to 8000. And with everything where it needs to be sanded and smooth, I assemble it all back together. I check my adjustment knob, make sure everything is working great. And I oiled all the pieces when they were separated, but I also hit it with oil once more, just to give it more protection. And I'm just using a basic 3-in-1 oil that you can get at any hardware store. And to test it out, I'm not 100% sure I like the corrugated sole yet, only time will tell, but I'm really happy I found a Stanley Bailey No. 4 Handplane at our local antique store. As you can see, it's working out just fine. I'll take it through the paces, and hopefully it'll perform the way I want it to. Now I think there is a time and place on when a hand plane should be used, but ultimately it's a user's discretion. I hope I'll be able to use this for years to come. It'll most likely be a staple in my woodworking journey. And I really appreciate how a 60-year-old hand plane could be of use in a modern day workshop. So thank you, Leonard Bailey, the pioneer who paved the way and designed these hand planes. And now that it's fully restored, let's put this thing to work.